Niger new military junta has closed the country's airspace for an indefinite period, citing the threat of military intervention by West African states after a deadline had been passed without restoring the ousted president. In the face of the threat of intervention that is becoming more apparent, Nigerian airspace is closed effective from on Monday, a junta spokesman said in an address on national television late on Sunday. The closure has forced airlines to reroute or divert flights from Air France. It said on Monday it has suspended flight to Burkina Faso and Mali till August the 11th. If you recall, President Mohamed Bazoum was last month disposed in a coup by the National Council for the Safeguard of Homeland, Omar Tichani, the head of the Presidential Guard. In response, the Economic Community of West African States, chaired by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, gave the coupists a 7 days deadline to return to democratically elected Bazoum to power and threatened to use all measures necessary, including the use of force if the junta did not comply. The deadline passed on Sunday. In reaction to the coupists not reinstating the disposed President Bazoum, the heads of state of Ecowas will be meeting on Thursday to decide what next action to take. With the U.S. finally taking a stand yesterday in coming out to totally condemn and finally calling it a coup, and has made that difficult choice of pulling out its personnel and planning to shut down the largest air base in Africa in Niger, and President Tinubu meeting with 6 governors that share boundary with Niger Republic, the signs are pointing towards a military action. But the big question and the big story for today is, what are the reasons why a coup seems to be taking place in Africa? And should military action be the next step to take? Well, these and more as it concerns the coup in Niger is what this edition of the big story is all about. And we're talking about the Niger coup, the best way in addressing it, the next action to be taken by Ecowas. And that's what we're having as a major discourse today on the big story. We'll talk about the Niger coup, what step to be taken next by Ecowas. And truly to help us talk about this, we have no other person but Mr. Wilson Igboje, a public analyst, helping out with the discussion. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning.
Well, anyway, the deadline has passed. Sunday it is. And according to ECOWAS, previous Sunday before, they made certain that all measures will be taken. Now, let's run through the event of things, especially as it concerns that very action or plan taken by ECOWAS. Now, the previous week Sunday, ECOWAS country closed all land and air borders between them and Niger after that emergency meeting in Abuja, and also imposed a no-fly zone on all commercial flights to and from the country that has about 25 million persons. I'm talking about Niger. President Tinubu has also met with governors of the state sharing boundary with Niger. The Niger junta has said that its own airspace is also shut to further flight from any other country. The U.S., like I said, is planning to shut its multi-billion-dollar drone and air base in Niger, the largest in Africa. Undermining also that the Senate has not given its nod on any military action to be taken by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and we do know that some northern senators are not aligning with it. But Mr. Wilson Igboje, is military action more likely with the way things are going?
Well, if you ask me, I'll say President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must not and should not involve Nigeria in any military action contemplated by ECOWAS countries against Niger Republic.
But with all the indices, are we likely going to have any? Undermining your advice will be not. But with all the indices on ground and all that I've mentioned earlier, is a military action most likely?
I don't think it is likely going to take place.
Okay.
Because if America says they are pulling out, they have the biggest air base,
Yes.
and the biggest drone base
Yes.
in Africa. It's in Niger. And they say they want to pull out. That means the situation is almost helpless.
So the
best
action is most likely.
No, not most likely. They're already telling them, why you manage yourselves? They're already telling the Chiani government, manage yourself. Do you run your country the way you want to run it? Clear language. So if ECOWAS countries make up their minds and say they want to invade Niger Republic, they're on their own. Because Niger, for instance, one of the reasons I'm standing against Bola Tinubu attacking Niger, maybe with the assistance of other countries, but well, if he has to do it, the Nigerian army is going to be the spearhead of the attack, which is very, very, very uncalled for. Uncalled for. Now, we're grappling with Boko Haram problem. If you look at the history of Boko Haram and all that has been taking place concerning the other countries in West Africa, you will find that Niger Republic has been one of the closest partners to the Nigerian government in combating the Boko Haram menace. If you look at the multinational joint task force comprising armies from Nigeria, Niger, Benin Republic, Chad, and Cameroon, the most reliable amongst these people has been Niger Republic. So, the Boko Haram menace is still there. If you go to war with Niger Republic today, if Nigeria goes to war with Niger Republic, because of a matter that concerns Niger Republic, that doesn't even have anything to do with Africa, I mean with Nigeria, then the other three partners in the Boko Haram matter may not be able to handle the Boko Haram matter sufficiently. You see, in handling a counter-insurgency operation, you don't rely on yourself alone, except you are very sure that the country you are dealing with is so enveloped in your territory that you know you can go around them. You may be surprised to find that if Nigeria invades Niger Republic, Boko Haram will team up with Niger Republic to fight Nigeria.
Now, sir, you've not answered my question. You've just given us reasons why you feel we should not. But with all the indices on ground, is that a likely possibility?
It's not. It shouldn't be a possibility. I'm not answering that question. It shouldn't be a possibility at all. It's not something that any sane person should contemplate. Bola Ahmed Tinubu already has his hands full with this subsidy issue.
So adding this to
it, that's going to be his second great mistake.
Okay, well, before we ask you about the first, which we might likely not ask you, depending on what we're looking at, especially on the as a major discourse, let's look at the reasons why Coup seems to be the order of the day in Africa, and most especially our sub-region, ECOWAS. Now, let's look at some of the reasons. Now, for example, the reason for the coup in Mali and Burkina Faso is basically a frustration of the lack of handling the activities of Islamists, taking a large part of the country. But in the case of Guinea, which happened September of 2021, the coup was more of a problem of the style of leadership of Alpha Conde. And that's the reason why that. And in Niger, the military said it seized power because of insecurity, which is basically a reason also for it. We're looking at that of Islamists, and economic situation. But for you, in your own view, what is encouraging coup in Africa? Because remember, there was even a planned coup that was to take place in Sierra Leone last week. But the government had to deal with it, quickly hold it forth. And that's why, as we speak, Sierra Leone is not being taken over by the military. So my question now is, in your own honest assessment, what is encouraging coups in Africa?
Well, let me tell you, looking at the nature of governance in the African countries, since they gained independence in 1960, apart from Ghana that had theirs in 1957, the others had theirs 1960 and down to 67. I think by that time all had gained their independence. The colonial masters, Britain and France in particular, because they took over most of the countries in West Africa, left some legacies that have been very, very cumbersome. Not leaving the country for the people. They claim to have given independence fully. They have always left some measures, put some measures in place.
Just to check.
That brings them back. Those measures bring them back from time to time. They monitor from their home countries. Take, for instance, the French government. Always has the French Expeditionary Force stationed in all their former colonies. That's the French legionnaires. For instance, in Niger, they have about 1,500 men positioned there. Go to Central African Republic, go to Mali, go to Burkina Faso. All these countries were colonized by France. Côte d'Ivoire, all of them. Now, they left systems of government that have been like things that were transplanted to be with our people. You look at Nigeria yourself. You see the problem. You see the problem with Nigeria. How the British left Nigeria and seem to have left certain things in place that we have not been able to overcome till now. You see the governance in Nigeria. You see the groups that have been dominating and still want to dominate because the British somewhat left a legacy that makes those people to feel that they own the land. See, look at the Constitution of Nigeria. Since independence. Before independence, yes, the British helped to do it. But since independence, the Constitution of Nigeria has been manipulated to suit the interests
all you
of
are
certain
saying
people.
Because of time is that the legacies of our colonial masters has always been a bit faulty and always have a strong bearing on the African continent. Hence the reason for the coups.
What I'm trying to tell you is that our people have manipulated these loopholes created by the colonial masters to run government or governments from time to time over the years that have made it possible for the military to come back and intervene. You see, the African traditional pattern
about governance. Do you feel the governing style of most African leaders is the direct problem we're having?
All of them, not most. All of them. The governing style of African leaders.
Is it in the area of being dictators?
Yeah, they're dictatorial.
In the term of running down the economy? Because if you remember what Niger said, they put the economy as a reason for the coup. And not just only that, the failed coup in Guinea-Bissau was orchestrated on the account of the economy. So let's understand. Is it that our leaders in Africa are the direct reason why you feel there are coup d'etats on the continent on account of poor governance coming from them?
You examine the Nigerian situation since independence. Look at all those who have ruled us. Tell me how many of them are not multi-billionaires.
But also
were they billionaires before they got to office?
But also those of the military.
I'm coming. Oh, if the civilians are making themselves billionaires, why do you think the military will not make themselves billionaires? It's just natural that when people get to office in Africa, they want to enrich themselves. Okay. The only exception I've seen is
so it's not the style of leadership then. It's not whether it's democracy or military. It's the people.
Whoever goes there, yes, the African instinct.
Okay, now
the African instinct, it makes them want to. In fact, when you acquire wealth, you want to protect it.
So now my next question is:
so when you have political power, you want to protect it, and you need money to protect it. So
my next question is: are coups the best way to addressing these loopholes of lack of governance on the continent? Is coup the only way, the best way in approaching it?
The best way is for people to discipline themselves and rule according to the constitutional stipulations.
So it's not coup d'etat.
It's not coup. Coup is not the best way to change government. We have to discipline ourselves. Okay. We have to rule according to the constitution that we have with us. Who is following the constitution? In Nigeria, all I have seen is that people rule based on impunity, principles of impunity.
Okay.
People don't follow, the Nigerians don't follow them, our rulers. How many of our rulers have followed the constitution? Very few. As soon as they get to office, they find loopholes, they find ways around the constitution to make themselves. Don't go outside looking at those ones. What is happening in Niger Republic, what is happening in Mali, what is happening in Burkina Faso, it's also happening right under your nose here. Look at the election rigging that takes place in Nigeria. Why would you not encourage coup plotters to take advantage of situations they find on ground?
So you mean there are always things for them to happen as a need of taking over?
Of course, because our ways are not clear, our ways are not pure, our ways are not constitutional. So people will always, the military will always look at what is going on.
And you blame our colonial masters for that very mistake.
Of course, they are partially responsible, but the fact is that the African nature in us to be authoritative, to be dictatorial, to want to control everything around them has always been a factor. Encouraging.
Now let's go into it. In the last 8 years, we've had 9 military takeovers, successful ones on the continent. Only one failed, and that's in Guinea-Bissau. But my next question will be, because that's the reason Nigeria is even putting hand into it. Will sitting down and watching it, don't you feel is also encouraging takeovers by military? Just sitting down and doing nothing. Don't you feel it has also encouraged the spate of coup d'etats on the continent?
Let me tell you, if you look back, we are going to find that there was a time when that's 80% of the countries in Africa were ruled by coupists.
Yes, we'll come to that, because it's even the next question I would like to ask you. Because it looks as if Africa is going around in circles, and we're now through a full circle, and we're returning back to those eras. But my question now is, we've seen successful coups 9 times on the continent in the last 8 years.
Yes.
And little or nothing have been done to address them. Don't you think the international community sitting on the sideline, other African countries not taking action, has also helped to encourage it? Because if they had somebody to bully them out of it, we might not have had more coups than we have had now. So my question is, don't you feel that Africans, nation, the international community, the West, everybody sitting on the fence and looking at it, is also encouraging it?
Mike, let me tell you. The United Nations Charter does not allow foreigners
to intervene
in the affairs of another country militarily. The best you can do is, that government is not constitutional, we don't want to have anything to do with them. What we are going to do is impose sanctions on them. You can do that. For instance, when General Abacha was in office,
yes,
the number of years he remained in office, he couldn't travel out of Africa.
That we know.
Because the West said they would have nothing to do with him. So he was always rolling around the African countries. He couldn't travel out of because of sanctions. They didn't want to have anything to do with him. Now, the West and the African countries can as well adopt the same posture to ensure...
Was it helpful before?
Whether it was helpful?
Yes.
Oh, well, it wasn't, whether it was helpful or not, we know that Abacha received that punishment until he died. The conspiracies that may have led to his death are not known to us.
Yeah, we'll not go to the Garden of Eden to look for apples. But all I'm saying is, do you feel lack of military intervention in restoring power back to the democratic elected government has also encouraged more coup d'etats to be happening?
You don't have the right to interfere
because of the United
in the affairs of another country.
That is what I do understand.
Yes.
That. But don't you feel a lack of interference has also been a reason that's encouraging, undermining you feel, or you know, and it's true, the United Nations Charter do not encourage invasion of any sort, on any guise. But don't you feel sitting on the fence without severe measures being taken has also encouraged it?
Severe measures you can take. Don't go outside the restrictions of sanctions. Impose your sanctions. If a nation is terribly sanctioned, the system will collapse. The coupists will not be comfortable. And when next they find that there is a constitutional government in place, they will do their best to support that constitutional government to succeed. You're going there to interfere militarily. It's not a solution.
But why have we not had such successes in Burkina Faso? What we had, because sanctions were imposed basically on account of the military taking over, and rather than having it, they haven't waxed stronger.
Yeah, the thing is,
with the Wagner Group also being a part of it.
Yes, you see, before the West intervenes in any country, in political affairs of any country, they consider what we know as a geostrategic interests.
So you feel there was a lack of interest in Burkina Faso from the West, hence no intervention.
Burkina Faso, Niger Republic, Mali are some of the poorest countries in West Africa.
But Niger has uranium that is one of the biggest.
That makes them even with that, they are still one of the poorest countries in the world.
Okay, I'll plead with you. This discussion will be very rich when we come back from the break. I'll plead with you to hold on. We need to go on the break now. But when we come back, we'll continue our discussion as we look at the coup in Niger and which way next to go, especially as Ecowas plan a very extraordinary meeting on Thursday to take action, whether to invade or not to, after Thursday meeting in Abuja. Let's go on a break.